This is my Sony a7 III. It is a full frame camera, and for the most part, I really like it, but there are some things I don't like about it. In this video, I'm gonna go over 5 things that I really hate about Sony full frame cameras. The number one thing I hate about Sony full frame cameras is big, heavy lenses. To a DSLR shooter, you may not understand this argument because these may look like normal sized lenses to you, but compared to the lenses that I have for my APS-C camera and compared to other mirrorless systems, Sony has some pretty chunky lenses. This is a wide angle prime lens. Normally primes are pretty small, but this one is pretty big. It's as big as my hand. And this Tamron 28-75, although it's a decent weight and is bigger than most general purpose zoom lenses for mirrorless cameras. The number 2 thing that I hate about Sony full frame cameras is that most of the good lenses are really expensive. Sony has some great lenses, the G Master series. They're all super sharp, super awesome, but they're all super expensive, like $2,000–$3,000 for most of those lenses. Because of that, I don't own any of those lenses. I don't have a single G Master lens. I once had a single G lens and I sold it pretty quickly because I didn't think that the value of the lens was very good. The number 3 thing I hate about Sony full frame cameras is that you're pretty limited with what gimbals you can and can't use with them. For example, I have a DJI Ronin SC gimbal, and it will work with my Sony a7 III if I have it paired with a really small, really light lens. If I have a big lens on it, like this Tamron 28-75, it's too big and too heavy to balance properly, and the motors just can't sustain the weight. Yet again, if you're a DSLR shooter, you probably are used to that con. Most DSLRs are pretty big, pretty heavy. But if you're a mirrorless shooter, you understand that camera lenses and camera bodies can be light, they can be small, they can be easy to use on a gimbal. But Sony's full frame cameras, you gotta get a bit beefier of a gimbal if you want to use it. So DJI has the S gimbal, not the SC. The SC is the smaller, the S is the bigger. And then I know Weebill makes a few, June makes a few. But the bigger the gimbal, the more expensive it is and the more space it takes up. I really like keeping my gimbal small, but with my small gimbal, I just have to stick with my APS-C cameras. I can't use my full frame cameras. The number 4 thing I hate about Sony full frame cameras, and you probably saw this coming, the menu system. A lot of people have complained about the menu system, and thankfully, with the Sony a7S III, they finally revamped the menu system. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to trickle down to older camera models, and it didn't even trickle into the Sony a7C, which was released after the a7S III. That's really unfortunate because the older menu system was really hard to know where to find things. Due to the customizable nature of Sony cameras, there are a ton of options in the menu system, and sometimes they're not organized in the most intuitive way, and sometimes there's just so many things you're sifting through that it's hard to find the right one. And last but not least, number 5, thing I hate about Sony full frame cameras is sensor dust. I really wish Sony would do what Canon does on its mirrorless cameras. When you detach a lens, the Canon cameras have the shutter mechanism closed, so that way your sensor isn't exposed to dust and dirt and wind and whatnot. Instead, with Sony cameras, when you take off your lens, the sensor is exposed in all its glory and it can get dust pretty easily. If you do a lot of shooting indoors, that might not be as much of a problem, but if you're out and about doing travel photography, travel videography, or you're just doing an on-location shoot, getting dust on your sensor is a big pain. Yes, you can clean your sensor, but some people don't feel comfortable doing that or just don't want to do it when they're mid-shoot. So it's really unfortunate that Sony doesn't have a better way to deal with this sensor dust. Alright, so those are my top 5 things that I hate about Sony full frame cameras. Do you think I missed anything? What do you hate about Sony full frame cameras? Leave a comment below, let me know, and I will see you next video. If you didn't catch it already, I made a video like this, but it was about the 5 things I love about Sony full frame cameras. If you haven't watched it yet, check it out. Thanks for watching. Bye.